We're going to call to action the combined discussion, call to order the combined discussion and action voting meeting. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Macro, roll call.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Dr. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Arendt.
Here.
Ms. Chudderwitz.
Here.
Mr. Caligiuri.
Here.
Dr. Richardson.
Here.
Mr. Sokolsky.
Here.
Mrs. Stepnick.
I'm here.
Mr. Stropke.
Here.
Thank you. The board met in executive session on June 18th, 2024 to discuss matters of litigation, safety, personnel, and real estate. We're going to do recognitions now. We're excited that you are all here with us this evening. As a courtesy to each of the groups being recognized, we ask that all audience members remain in the meeting during the recognitions. We want each student group to have a special moment of recognition free from the distraction of others socializing or making their way to the exit. Once the recognition portion of the meeting has concluded, we'll pause for families to exit, but tonight we have the McAfee video to play, so when we finish, we want to be able to play that as well before you leave. For seniors being recognized this evening, we'd like for you to share about your future academic, extracurricular, or professional plans following graduation, which already happened, so that you're planning on doing as you head out for the summer. Coaches, don't let them slip away when they are up here. And lastly, we will pause after each group's recognition to allow for pictures. And so we have the backdrop that's back there. So if you can quietly, after you get recognized, make your way back there for pictures, get a quick photo shoot, and then we'll move on to the next one. Ms. Macro.
This evening, all of our recognitions are for the Plum Senior High School. So Mr. Pat Bachman, the principal of the high school, will get us started.
Good evening. We're excited to recognize our spring athletes from 4 different activities. First off, I'd like to invite Coach DiLeonardo up to talk about his softball team.
Thank you. We had a fairly successful season this year. Eight of our players were recognized in the all-session voting, and our first team attendees are not here, which would be Jaden Gentile's first team infield, Bella Tavella was first team outfield, and Riley Stevens was first team pitcher. The young ladies that are here tonight are second team all section, which is Liana Yusko, who has been our starting second baseman for 2 seasons. Had a tremendous year, great defensive player, and just an all-around good kid. The next one that I would like to recognize is Danielle Pesci. Danny is a junior, well, and now a senior, I suppose. She is our catcher. She has been a starter for 3 years. Another good kid. One of the things about this team that I really like is we have nice kids. They're not arrogant. They're not crazy. They just like to come and play softball and represent their school well. And our last second team player is Brooke Bernowski. Brooke is a freshman. For a freshman to make an all-section team is fairly rare, especially in softball. So I think our future is bright with these girls. We have a lot of young players, and I think our softball team is in good shape for the next few years. So I would like to bring them up. Liana Yuska. Danielle Pesey. I'm being official, Danny. And Brooke Bernowski. Thank you.
And then ladies and Coach DeLeonardo, if you would step to the backdrop there, and we're going to take a quick picture of you. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to welcome Jamie Stewart, who helped coach our girls lacrosse program this spring.
Good evening. I am pleased to be able to recognize this great individual, but recognize all the ladies that we're going to talk about tonight on behalf of the coaching staff. The girls had an excellent season this year, full of ups and downs, which is typical in a sports season. The girls learned about setting goals and dealing with adversity as they worked together as a team. I'm proud of the entire team who put in countless hours throughout the entire year to have an incredible season despite losing in the first round of the playoffs to Quaker Valley. I also want to say thank you and wish the entire senior class the best of luck as they have left their mark on Plum lacrosse. Let me introduce tonight. There's several individuals who are not going to be with us tonight. 5 individuals in total we want to recognize. Let me call up Sophie Anderson, who is here. Sophie was a senior captain on the team. And just a note about Sophie, she started in every game during her entire lacrosse career. The other ladies that I do want to recognize, Rayla Smith. She was also a senior captain who started in every game during her entire career. Melena Smith was a goalie on the team. Carly Venanzi was one of our versatile players. And then Ruby McClintock, who was a senior defender for us. They all received all section honors, and so we're very proud of them. I also just want to say a note. I know Drew's not here tonight, but I just do want to thank him for his support of the team. His attendance and support throughout the year is second to none, and we greatly appreciate that. Also want to thank the training staff who helped keep the players healthy throughout the year, and I also want to thank everybody here for their support. That without that, the girls would not have had the season they had. So, thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
What are you doing next year?
What are you doing?
Hi. Next year I'll be attending Frostburg State University in Maryland, and I'll be playing on their women's lacrosse team and double majoring in art education and psychology with the end goal of becoming an art therapist.
Next, I'd like to introduce Coach Matt Proskin to talk about the track and field team this spring.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. So our track team this year, we had a very good season. We were very competitive in our section, both on the girls and boys side. A little different than some of the sports, where the end of the season goal is to reach the Whitbill meet, and that's the group that we have here tonight. Is the group that made the Whitbill meet in some capacity. So Our girls 4x100 relay team made it, and then we had one individual boy who made it in his individual events. And overall, as a program, for the second year in a row, we had 2 school records that were broken during the season, and then we also had 2 individuals who qualified for the state meet, and that was Gabby Lane and Owen Proskin, who qualified for the state meet this year. So overall, the program's definitely going in the right direction. We had a good balance of youth and senior leadership. One of the seniors on the relay team, Iona Adams, isn't here tonight, but she is a senior and she'll be going to Goldie Beacom College and running on their track team next year. So that's very exciting for us to help another student athlete move on to the next level. The rest of the group here will recognize Owen Proskin. All right, Gabby Lane. So Owen and Gabby were the 2 that qualified for states this year, and they're also the 2 that broke school records this year. Gabby was also part of our girls 4x100 relay team that made the Whipple meet. Isla Philo. Isla was is a freshman. She was a big part of our 4x100 team. Zoe Wilkes. And then our other senior with this group is Nia Hart. And I'll give the microphone to Nia to say a little bit about where she's going next year.
Hi, my name is Nia. I'm going to be attending Duquesne University, and I'm going to be majoring in biomedical engineering.
Lastly, we're going to recognize 4 student athletes from the baseball team. Those 4 students are Colin Watson, Eric Stresnick, Sean Franzi, and Jack Anderson. Sean is here today. Come on up, Sean. He's a senior. I'm going to shake opposite. And they're going to want to hear a little bit about yourself next year.
Hi, I'm Sean Franzi. I will be attending Edinburgh University. I will be playing football, and I will be majoring in education. Thank you.
Poor Sean is to his lonesome. I can speak for 2 of the other 3 that I know they're on a baseball field right now playing, or else they would have been here.
Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Rick Barat to discuss his program and some of the things that his kids did throughout the school year.
Before Mr. Barat speaks, I just want to give a little bit of background of how we got here this evening. I think it was September, around that time, October, and Mr. Barat, with all the responsibilities that he has in school, I know myself, I love live streaming our events when I cannot make it, and I get to hear his voice on my back porch.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing, Dr. Long?
It's a good thing. I've been listening to it for about 40 years, so it's a good thing. And I approached him about the generous donations that we've been receiving from the We Are All Mustangs Fund, specifically Pat McAfee. And as a district, I never really felt like we have said thank you. We say thank you when we graciously accept the donations, but something that would capture how we felt as a community. And I reached out to Mr. Barat, and with everything else on his plate, he gracefully said that he was interested. Now, what that meant, unfortunately, for Haley, Sophie, Cole, and TJ is that every time they saw me, there was edits or conversations either in my office or in the TV production studio. I think we've gone from a 7-minute video to a 2-minute video to different clips trying to capture the events. And the collaboration is, I thought, what an authentic assignment for our students. World, collaborating with different stakeholders, and they really put together a top-notch video in regards to capturing our appreciation for the generosity of Mr. McAfee. And I want to also thank, Mr. Barat, under his direction and his watchful eye, was able to work with our students and put something together that we can all be proud of. So I just want to say thank you to you and all the work that went into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. I mean, we did try to hide when you would come down to the TV room a little bit, and Haley or Soph or Cole would say to me, Dr. Walsh is here. And I couldn't hide in my closet. No, I'm kidding. Rick had Dr. Walsh had some great ideas, and so did the students. So it was finding that perfect balance. And I did want to mention also, just to throw another little wrench into our equation here, with our technology department, and they do a great job with Dan Loletta and Cassie Smith, and it's honestly a privilege to work with them. We do a really good job at getting the video to the Boxcast in order to live stream. But whether it is Mr. Stropka's son Marco, who's helped with play-by-play, we can get it there. But the technology department on the back end, when we live stream, they carry it to everyone. And we learned the hard way this year. Unfortunately, we're at Shaler and we set up our live stream at 6 o'clock. We're ready to go, and then the sun beats on the box for 30 minutes, and it's 85 degrees, and the stadium fills up, and we realize our live stream falls to the end of the network, and we lose it. And then I have people like Dr. Walsh and we graduated with Dennis Pilata. He'll text me, Rick, it's frozen again. And I'm like, I can't help it. But the technology department was a big help, not only with the live stream, but we learned real early, and the school board was gracious enough. We had refurbish the TV studio this past year, and that was wonderful. And we learned in January, and my students will start to smile, TJ and Haley and Soph and Cole, because they did titles about 100 times for our Make-A-Wish telethon. New computers, new Avid, and the new title program that we had, they didn't work properly together. And sitting with the technology department on 2 calls down with Avid for one and with the title program with the other, they blamed each other. And Dan Loletta and Cass made the executive decision. They said, you have all these licenses for Adobe Premiere, let's switch editing programs. And to put it in perspective to the audience, that'd be like my wife switching her reading series in February. And so we started from scratch after we had a lot of videos, halfway done or 2/3 of the way done. So we started from scratch, and then Dr. Walsh would come down and say, oh, I like this, I saw on social media, maybe we can do something like this. So we added that in a little bit also, but I'm gonna shut my mouth now, I'm done talking. But we will play I'm assuming Ms. Macro, she'll play the thank you video that we created that we sent out to Pat McAfee.
As the Plum Borough School District Athletic Director, we wanted to come together to thank you for your tremendous donation that have and are continuing to allow our athletic programs to excel in multiple different ways. Since we were able to get new and improved equipment, our athletes are now able to challenge themselves in practice and better perform in games. Just a few of these are both girls and boys soccer teams who have continued to crush the standards and win the section title 5 years in a row. We also had a member of the boys golf team go on and compete at states. The Plum baseball team tied for their section title last year, and the girls lacrosse team won their first section title in school history. As a district, we have also had multiple swimmers go on to compete at Whitfields. Here are a few of our senior players from this year to say about how they're better off with the first them and your.
My name is Nick Collins, and I was one of the captains of this basketball team. It was truly an honor. For myself and the whole Plum football team, I would like to personally thank you for the amazing new year you got. Thank you.
Is it frozen?
Oh,
Yeah, we did have storms tonight, so.
If you move it forward a little bit.
That's you, TJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to catch up Mrs. Macro here.
Yeah. I mean, I would say maybe try and just move it back a nudge to like the 1 minute mark. That might,
Okay.
if not, that's okay. I did compliment the technology department, right?
It was truly an honor. For myself and the whole Plum football team, I would like to personally thank you for the amazing new year you got. Thank you.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. So again, that was half the video, but I don't know why it's not playing now. But at this time, right before I call up the students, I'd like to say that, you know, this is a project that Haley and Soph took the bull by the horns and they ran with it. And then towards the end, which I thought was absolutely admirable, not only did the seniors have to finish their baby picture project up, and they had graduation, and they had this video to do. We were completing the lip dub and the final closing credits and bloopers for our lip dub video, and Cole Kemmer and Haley and Soph came in after graduation practice, and they actually came in after graduation, which they had no obligation to do so. They came in to finish, and also, which I thought was admirable, TJ is a junior. He'll be a senior next year. As he was watching everything taking place, and they left to go to the elementary schools, TJ came in and said, "Hey, do you need help with this, Mr. Broad? I'd like to help." And I said something to his parents behind me. I'm like, that was really admirable also that he offered assistance. And so at this time, I'd like to call up these 4 students for putting this video together. First, Haley Defcon. Cameron. Now, before I leave, there's 2 other things I'd like to say real quick. And Miss Macro has another video, but it's real short. I have 31 years in now, and Dr. Walsh, I don't know how many years you have in, but I mean, we used to play football together at the Center Elementary Playground. I mean, I think I caught more football passes than you from Joe Clark, but I don't know though. But 31 years still plugging away, and you know, it's really nice when you walk in the halls and people say hi to me, specifically Miss Sedlak, who always tells me that I'm her favorite teacher here. She says, "Mr. Barad, I really enjoy you." Is that correct, Miss Sedlak?
I love Mrs. Barad so much. She is
All I'm hearing is Mr. Barat, so I don't know about anyone else. But no, all kidding aside, before I close, the one thing I wanted to add is we're all here on a Tuesday night after storms. I was at a graduation party 2 weeks ago, and after 31 years here, someone said to me, Mr. Barat, what's it like? Define what it's like to be a Mustang. And I'm like, that is such a powerful question. That's a loaded question. Whether, you look at our emblem with integrity, committed, relentless, caring, everything like that. And I answered that question by saying the word encouragement. And if the video will play, Jen Macro has a part of the video behind the scenes from the lip dub. And it was actually at the 2-minute, 21-second mark. It's on my Google Drive, and I sent it to Miss Macro just a little bit ago. It was 10 o'clock on a Friday night. It was our third run through the lip dub. Everyone was tired and exhausted. And one of the students, Ben, he had to make this jump right after our Ken part, which TJ was one of the stars of the Ken part going through the locker room. And the encouragement for Ben was truly amazing. And I was the camera operator, and I had my phone on a gimbal, and I'm walking through, and I just wanted people to hear. And some of the students aren't even really, they're friends with Ben, but the amount of encouragement to Ben was truly remarkable. And I'm listening to everyone cheering on Ben so he hits this jump, and I'm trying not to get emotional. I'm sweating. It's like 10:15 at night. Everyone wants to go home, and if Ben doesn't make this jump, we're going to stop and redo it one more time, and that's it. Whether he hits it or not, that's it for the lip dub because it's one shot. So, Miss Macro, if you can play it as we're coming into the gym. Ben is actually right here in the corner, and he's wearing a Steeler jersey, and he has to make this jump. The students throw him up, and if you just listen to the encouragement of Ben, that's what I feel is the definition of what a Mustang is all about. Thanks, John. I don't know if they're saying hallelujah, it's raining men, or hallelujah, it's Ben, but regardless, he made the jump and the rest was history. But that was my definition, and that's what I wanted to conclude tonight. Definition of being a Mustang is always being encouraging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Broad. I apologize about the video. I'm not sure. I was able to pull that up and watch it on my screen. I'm not sure what happened, but I do apologize about that. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Could we actually have our seniors tell us what their plans are after high school? We'll have Colin.
Hello, my name is Cole Kemmer. I'm going to Penn State University to study finance in the fall.
Hi, my name is Haley Depcon, and I'm going to Virginia Tech to study environmental engineering in the fall.
Okay.
We're good with recognition. Yeah. Okay, that concludes recognition. So they're taking pictures. We'll take a quick break. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you want to. I'm guessing no. So if you want to leave at this time, you're more than welcome, and we'll take a short pause. Thank you.
I just
Ms. Macker, when he comes back, we can start for citizens' comment.
I wasn't too long, was I? I apologize if I was too long.
Just under 45 minutes, you were good.
That's a good one, Dr.
You're welcome.
I know where you live.
I know where you do too.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to say, I see you 4 out of 7 days walking or running by each other.
That's correct. And you and the dog.
That's right.
The other three must be pretty good.
Yeah. I still think Miss Sedlak, I'm number one.
I think she has a speech impediment, that she just
Yes,
gets that.
I hear most of her eyes. I'm telling you.
You're getting old, you're at that hard of hearing.
I try to talk Mr. Devine and Mrs. Devine.
Ready? Okay, at this time, we'll move on to citizens' comments. Ms. Macro?
It'll be just a moment. Just a moment, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So for citizens' comments, this is the time for you to comment on anything on the agenda or not on the agenda. You will be provided 3 minutes to speak. We ask that you state your name, your residency within Plum, and then I will put a timer on the screen so that you can monitor your time, and then I'll also give you a 30-second warning. It's just a reminder for you, this isn't a session for question and answer with the board, rather a time for you to share your ideas, comments, and suggestions. And then when you're finished, I'll have you place your name on the clipboard so that I spell it correctly in the minutes. Whenever you're ready, you may begin to speak.
John Anderson, 2258 Chaparral Drive. Appreciate the fact that my daughter and her classmates were recognized today. I asked Rick to stay. Rick is a friend of mine, but what I say, I would say this if he was a friend of mine or not. I got to see firsthand what his television program did. My daughter has no inclination whatsoever to go into communications or television productions or anything. But the real world skills, dealing with the public, dealing with the demands of all kinds of different people, and Dr. Walsh, I promise she always spoke kindly of you when she came home. But just the reality of what it was like to be in his class and just the cooperation. Rick was very generous this year where he invited me in to get a spot just to see what the Make-A-Wish telethon was like, and I spent approximately 45 minutes in complete awe of what 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids were doing. I had seen the product online before, but never in person, and what goes on behind the scenes was just unbelievable. And then to top that off, Rick asked me to be a chaperone for the filming of the lip dub. And basically I said, what am I supposed to do, Rick? He said, just make sure nobody does anything stupid. So basically I stood around for 5.5 hours or so, but I shared that lip dub at the school where I work. And I can't tell you how many people who work in education came up to me and go, that's amazing. What those kids pulled off is amazing. How did they do that? I'm like, I don't know how they did it. I watched them do it 4 times and I still don't know how it got done, even though my daughter and her friends pulled it all off together and I heard about it. But this program and the kind of programs, I know you're facing tough decisions. To be honest with you, I thought this place was going to be packed today with other people. So I didn't intend to speak, but please continue to support Rick and things like this because, again, my daughter has no intentions of doing anything like this in her professional career, but the experiences in the TV classes have been 100%. And I think he said what it's like to be a Mustang. I'd share with you one last comment of one of my colleagues that said, I watched that video and I could tell all of those kids were having fun, even though they weren't all friends. They came together for how many hours you were there and they worked on a common project and they had a blast. And I said, that is absolutely correct. That's what I saw too. So kudos to Rick. Now, if his head fits out the door, we'll be okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments at this time? Okay, Dr. Anderson, back to you.
Okay. We are having a combined discussion and action meeting tonight. So Dr. Walsh and I will do our president's and superintendent's report, and then we'll move through the discussion meeting. And if no one here leaves, then we're just going to continue on if our role is the same, everybody being in the room, or else we'll do an additional roll call. And then we'll go through our action meeting. For board members to note, we'll do our reports during the action portion, but we'll do our superintendent and president's report up front. So just another congratulations to the student athletes and TV production crew. Appreciate that they came out during the summer months to allow us to recognize them. Real quick for tonight, just 2 items that I want to highlight in our meeting this evening. First, the $5 million grant for the EPS Clean School Bus Program. As you will hear tonight, this was not an easy task or grant to go after. Incredible legwork, due diligence, and attention to detail had to be put into place in order for this grant to be awarded. I want to thank our administration team, and specifically Preston Hartman and Ryan Manzer for the work that they did. Normally, as board members, transportation feels like a weight on our shoulders year over year, yet this grant will empower us to see transportation in a different light in the years ahead. Second, the launch of the Portrait of a Graduate initiative. Dr. Boyers will share more details, but this initiative will allow the district to strategically focus on the outcomes of our graduates. It is a comprehensive approach that involves the community, business leaders, staff, students, and administration all working together toward a common goal, which is graduating the most well-prepared, equipped, and empowered graduates that we can. I'm really excited for this initiative to get kicked off over this summer. I've had 2 of my 3 already come through, but I'm really excited for my 3rd to go through the high school after we've gone through this Portrait of a Graduate program. I know I said 2 things, but I'd also highlight the new athletic handbook created by our athletic department this evening that we'll be passing. I think it's a step in the right direction and a great one to provide visibility to our families and to our athletes and coaches on the athletic department. Upgrades to our cafeteria space at the high school. And last month we had many district employees retire after many years of service, and this month we get to have many new hires to support our students and staff this fall. I would just add, on behalf of the board, I wish everyone an awesome summer. Hopefully our staff can find some time to get some R&R before we hit the ground running this fall. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Over the last year, this board has heard me discuss my focus going into this school year, which was student voice, engagement, transparency. And last month, this administrative team gave a comprehensive overview of the accomplishments over the last year. I'd like to just spend a few minutes discussing previews of things to come. In regards to student voice, our new school board rep already has moved forward a proposal on our students painting parking spaces. working with Mr. Balkman. That's going to happen, I believe July 15th. They're going to start the painting, and they're asking for food trucks. And it's just a way of getting our students engaged and giving them a voice. You've heard me talk about our student newspaper. That would only go out to the students at the high school. Now it goes out to 53,000 subscribers to our district app. And we're also going to have two high school seniors, a male and a female, representing the Plum Borough School District on the Borough Council next year. In regards to engagement, I will continue to work with the high school administration, the middle school, and the elementary administration to get our students more engaged, specifically here at the high school. I want our students to have a voice in regards to our program of studies and the courses and what their experiences are like and how we can improve upon them. And I continue to look forward to working with our students. Our administrative team will continue to be involved at the local, state, and national level in order to bring the best practices back to the Plum Borough School District. We've already submitted an application for our district to become a member of the League of Innovative Schools that was led by Dr. Boyers and Mr. Laletta. Our district received the Global Education Excellence Award, and that was because of our commitment to international exchange students. We want to continue to grow that program. In regards to transparency, Dr. Anderson talked about the Portrait of a Graduate. I can't think of an initiative that would be more transparent than meeting with our internal and external stakeholders, our teachers, our employees, parents that have students, parents that just live in the community, retirees, business owners, and get a comprehensive understanding of what this community values in regards to education and what our vision is moving forward. This will tie nicely into our comprehensive planning and really set a vision of who we are and where we're moving in the future. We've also initiated, in regards to transparency, working with public relations, Carry On Communications. We will continue to have monthly newsletters. We were going to push out an annual report later this summer of all the details and inner workings of the good work that this board has done and the initiatives that we're moving forward. And we're also looking at starting the school year with 8 pages in the In Plum magazine to keep all taxpayers in the community informed of the happenings of the Plum Borough School District. Our athletics, it's no surprise after you saw the young men and women being recognized tonight that our program was recognized as the most positive school winner in Western Pennsylvania. Our athletic handbook is on the agenda tonight, and that is another opportunity for us to be transparent of what we expect our student athletes and what we expect them to perform and behave. We're also going to be pushing out a coach's manual in regards to expectations for our coaches that will be consistent across all athletics in all seasons. I believe that Plum is a community where school and community grow together. It is also a community with high expectations. And I truly believe the best is yet to come to the Plum Borough School District. So that's all I have this evening, Dr. Anderson, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on with the discussion portion of the meeting. Academic achievement and activities, myself as lead board liaison. Letter A, we have grants and donations awarded, Mr. Dinga, and then we have the $5 million for the EPA Clean Bus Program.
Yeah, Mr. Hartman is going to give an overview in regards to the grant, the application process, and steps forward. Mr. Coles is also here this evening, and Ms. Schaefer from Facilities. We thought it would be helpful in regards to transparency, in regards to keeping this board and our community informed about what our next steps are. Mr. Hartman?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to the board again. It's always a great opportunity to kind of share a lot of the exciting things that we're doing, and this certainly, I think, falls into that category. So the EPA Clean School Bus Program is a federal program. Ms. Macro, if you don't mind going to the next slide. It is, thinking about big picture and how we can be, fiscally responsible and accountable and being process driven. That's who we are and how we operate. And so part of that, looking at these grants and some of the projects I've been involved with, is how do we find unique ways for outside funding to supplant things that we're already doing, but also bring in new and innovative ideas. And I think this fits perfectly with that. As I mentioned, this was a federal program. There were 3 different rounds so far to this point. And there's a EPA grant and there's an EPA rebate program. And what we received was the rebate program. And I'll go into that a little bit more detail. But essentially, the national program with the rebate program that came out in 2022, we applied for that. We were not successful. But districts that were received funding, and so far, a little over 8,000 buses are scheduled to be replaced nationally that are either zero emission or electric vehicles. The grant process or the application process was pretty extensive, and as I'll get to here, we applied in 22, were unsuccessful, applied again in 2023, were unsuccessful, but then in early 2024, third time was a charm for us. And so as I mentioned, the rebate program, it was a little bit more of a simple application process, a little bit broader of a applicant pool, if you will, and districts or any organization was applying could apply up to 25 buses. And so we were pretty excited that the next slide kind of highlights our sort of process and how we got to here. So as I mentioned, in August of 2022, we applied for the first round unsuccessfully. The following year, 2023, we applied for the second round of EPA funding. We were unsuccessful. In September, after speaking with some other districts in other areas that had success applying for those grants, we recognized that Highland Electric Vehicles, or Highland Electric Fleets, was a consulting group that works with districts, and they had a lot of success historically applying on the behalf of schools. So we partnered with them, and they helped do an analysis of our fleet. They talked us through the process and kind of gave us some options of what the potential for applying for this rebate program would be. So in September, we joined them, or I should say they collaborated with us. In October, we also reached out to Duquesne Light to speak to their representatives to learn, more about their capacity to be able to integrate electric vehicles under their electric grid here in Allegheny County, but also to seek their support to analyze our fleet and look at the analytics of how can we integrate these buses into how we operate. And so in October, they did a site visit at the transportation garage, talked through some of the schematics and potential plans, and that kind of dovetailed in nicely with our current relationships with Hayes Design Group, who also did a feasibility or facility study of the transportation garage. So looking at that area and future planning, how we're going to, or how that, upgrades that space needs, looking at the potential of integrating electric buses and the infrastructure that may need to happen at that time while doing that was a great experience to kind of, join 2 projects at one time that will obviously be cost saving in the long run. In January of this year, we submitted our final application with the help of Highlands, and then in April, we were given notice that we were also awarded 50 free hours of technical assistance from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, ERG, Energy Research Group, has been providing us technical assistance as well through the application process, but more so in the integration of reviewing different bus types, makes, models, battery capacities, everything you can think of in the world of electric vehicles. They've been an integral part in kind of catching us up to speed and teaching us about what we should be looking for and how we're kind of planning for this integration that's unique to our district. So just to kind of give you an idea of the scope of this, I know that I said it was a national program. The rebate program itself, this round of funding we were awarded, there were only 531 school districts across the entire nation that received an award. We were one of 21 school districts in all of Pennsylvania. So it's a pretty unique experience, and I think it's a great opportunity to really showcase the great things that Plum can do. You'll see up there that there's some other districts within the county and locally that are also listed. Some are more rural, some are more urban, some have more buses, some have less buses than we do. But overall, I think this is a really unique opportunity to showcase, what we can do here at Plum. And so on the next slide, Ms. McEnroe, kind of going over, what our next steps are. And this is why I think, it's helpful that Shelley and Tay are here as well, because this isn't just a a grant project that's, okay, we have this money, now let's find a way to use it. This is really an all hands on deck, and it's going to help multiple departments improve efficiency, but also grow and expand. And so I think, working with facilities and working with transportation, obviously, it's been a collaborative effort of our core team, along with Mr. Manzer in the business office, in learning about this process and understanding how we can be fiscally responsible to make the best decisions for our district and our community. So the plan moving forward will be to continue to work with some of our strategic partners that I highlighted earlier, as well as build out our plans with Duquesne Light and Highlands to learn about some of the other funding opportunities. We currently are working on 2 other grant opportunities that can be stacked on top of federal funding. They're at the state level. The Driving PA Forward program and the AFIG, or the Alternative Fuels Incentive Grant. Both of those are, the PA Drive Forward program is based on a percentage of the total cost of a new bus in regards to certain models that can be exchanged for those electric buses. And the AFIG program will allow us to apply for up to additional $300,000 towards the purchase of buses. So we're continuing to try to find and explore other revenue streams and other grant opportunities to help support this initiative. Part of that, again, is working with Duquesne Light. They have an energy rebate program through the utility service. So we've spoken to them about rebates and refunds on infrastructure, charging stations, things of that nature, as well as looking at some other options and programs that they're kind of anticipating happening in 24-25, not yet approved, but we're, again, working with our closest partners to try to make sure we're ahead of the game in terms of everything we can do to make this a fiscally responsible choice. And just in that note, in speaking with Highlands and Duquesne Light, both of them were very, I don't want to say surprised, but they were grateful that we as a district were so prepared in thinking about this. I think there were a lot of applications that went through that people just kind of hoped something happened. But for us, we really put a lot of thought into this. We were very process driven to make sure that we were making a good choice, and we had all those steps in place ready to go. Because as soon as we got awarded, I was, emailing and calling Highlands and Duquesne Light the next day saying, hey, we want to meet, let's go. Like, what can we do to get this process going? So we already have a meeting next week scheduled for Duquesne Light to come out and look at the transportation garage. We just had a meeting on Monday with Highlands as well. We have another one next week. So this is continuously moving. And again, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that we can follow the process for, what the EPA guidelines are on these funds. Some other things that, obviously we need to plan for. The bus garage site plan, that's where Tay and Shelley come in as well. The procurement, the installation of the buses and the infrastructure, the charging stations, but then also the training for drivers, mechanics, as well as, excited to get student input on this as well and have maybe students, whether it's, our green school or environmental clubs and things of that nature that might find a way that they can relate to this and help, kind of share in that knowledge and embrace some of the future of, the transportation in the district. That's kind of the high level of our next steps in where we are. But certainly I'll try to do my best to answer any questions. I'm sure there might be a lot, but does anybody have any questions or comments at this time?
I have a few.
Sure.
In regards to the grant, were any alternative fuels such as CNG or LLG, biodiesel, were any of those considered when you went up?
Yeah, so for this specific grant with the Clean School Bus Project, there were, the opportunity for electric buses was obviously the priority, but there was the potential for propane. That was the other clean fuel that they had listed. But given the nature of what we were looking for in terms of consistency with, obviously these will be integrated with our current diesel buses, adding in a third variable was something that maybe, might not have been the most feasible in looking at. So we were, obviously focused on, let's look at the electric buses, see what that integration process is, and then see what the future might hold.
Thank you.
Sure.
My next one might be for Mr. Coles. With our current staff, or any of our current mechanics, are they trained on electric vehicles, or what kind of process does that look like?
One of our mechanics does have some knowledge on it. I don't know, excuse me, to what extent at the moment, but he has spoken to me about some of the different knowledge he has with the electric school buses. And we have been looking at different options as far as training to get them more in-depth training on how to work on those vehicles.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll just piggyback on that too. Part of our partnership with Highland and Duquesne Light and ERG, they are providing resources for us to utilize for training. Obviously, there's going to be some challenges with learning new technologies, and that's something that they've already thought about, and they've given us info to kind of plan for as we make this integration. It's obviously not going to happen overnight, so we certainly have some time to get that training in place, but I have full faith in Mr. Manzer and our core team here to make sure that we get everything put in place that's needed to make sure that everybody's set up for success.
I just want to thank Mr. Hartman, Mr. Manzer, Ms. Schaefer, Mr. Coles, in regards to the good work you did. We talk about being fiscally responsible. I honestly don't know if the district has received a larger grant than the $5 million that was awarded to us last month. It is a significant investment in transitioning our diesel buses. I am in agreement. I don't see our diesel buses all going away. We're still going to have competitions that will require us to go to Harrisburg or Philadelphia or travel long distances. But for some of our short runs, it makes sense. And in some of the estimates in the life of these buses, and please don't hold me to these figures, but it was about $1.3 million in savings to the district in regards to fuel and maintenance costs, because there's less maintenance with electric buses. So that's a preliminary estimate. Mr. Manzer and I are still taking a deep dive in regards to looking at the long-range costs. And we want to be fiscally responsible, and I can't thank you enough. I know how much time Mr. Hartman puts into the grants and how much pride he takes and how disappointed he is when it doesn't turn out in our favor all the time. But your good work hasn't gone unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Walter, if I may, and I, again, sorry that I'm not there tonight, I want to be there to celebrate our students, to talk about this grant and several other things. But I would like to let the board know, I have been participating in these electric vehicle type webinars. I went to Harrisburg last June, just to learn a little bit about sort of what was out there in the market. And I recommend all of you to participate in these particular, I'll find one of the links and send them to you. But they are extremely informative. The presenters are very knowledgeable. Actually, the last one, I think, Mr. Hartman was on, so was I. I don't know if Mr. Manzo was on. I think President and I were on. It was the day after we got the grant that it coincided with having this webinar. And the information that I got off of it, and you know, and staff has as well, it really answers a lot of your questions to be knowledgeable and to participate. So I encourage the whole board to do so, and thank you to Mr. Manzer and Mr. Hartman for putting this together and staying consistent and persistent, I guess, too, on making sure that we get some funding. And this will be a relief to the district long term. But there are some additional funding options like we talked about, and I believe, Mr. Hartman, the contact for the secretary who's in charge of draft VA forward, I will get that to you. But I really would encourage all of you to participate and to learn as much as you can so we can speak knowledgeably to community members on this topic.
Thank you, Ms. Stepnick. Thank you, Mr. Preston.
Thanks.
Ms. Schaefer, Mr. Coles. Do we have 5 to move that forward? Wonderful. Thank you. All right, the student athlete handbook. Do we have somebody speaking on it?
Yes.
Okay.
In Mr. Carpen's absence, Mr. Carpen has not quite been here a year as our athletic director. But under his leadership, and I think Coach Stewart, really summed it up. He's been very visible, very hands-on. In the wintertime, he started the NFHS, the National Federation of High School Association. He started the sportsman course that all of our student athletes and the coaches needed to take. Just 2 weeks ago, our school district was awarded the most positive school in Western Pennsylvania as part of the Positive Athletic Program. This handbook is something that has been severely missed, and it outlines everything that the coaches, the students, and the parents need to know, much like with our student parent handbooks for the school. It's an excellent first draft. He will be monitoring and editing it and tweaking it each year. But we would ask that you approve that tonight, as you have approved our other student parent handbooks. It's a great first step in moving this district athletic programs forward.
I can't agree enough.
I would add that we would like to get this handbook on cycle with our other academic handbooks so that the board will have opportunity to review this every March. And with continuous improvement, we'll be coming back with recommendations in about 9 months.
And I think one of the things it does for coaches and even for us as board members, just gives you a document and a source of truth to point back to for answers to questions that families have and athletes have along the way. And I think that's really important, right? We have that in our other handbooks. This is a great one for our student athletes as well.
And Dr. Anderson, just to point out, Mr. Carpenter will be creating a coach's handbook, much as we have an employee manual.
Yep.
It will not be board approved, it is just our operations manual. But he will have that completed for August.
Yeah, and I know you and I have talked lots about onboarding, and I think he's continuing to improve that for our coaches as well. So I really appreciate that. Okay, do we have, any questions on that?
How did they sign off on it? Because I see there's a signature part, but it's in an odd.
It'll be signed off electronically.
Oh.
Any other questions?
And what grade levels are going to get this? I'm hoping the middle school and high school.
It is for any of our 7th through 12th grade sports programs.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure it's off the phone and clear.
Do we have 5 to move it forward? Thank you. All right, portrait of a graduate, Dr. Boyers.
Good evening. This evening I have an opportunity to share with you about the portrait of a graduate. You've heard some information about this as we talked about our postgraduate survey and some of the opportunities that I presented that was shown from our student voice, but also in our year in review and where we're going to move forward to. When we talk about the portrait of a graduate, Mrs. Mecca, can you go ahead by one more slide, please? Really just starting with the question of what is it that we want our students to know and be able to do, and how can we prepare them for the ever-changing world around themselves. And so we want to think about schooling typically and thinking about our math, science, our reading, writing, and arithmetic per se. But then what are those other skills that our students need, those competencies at every grade level as they matriculate through our K-12 system and then move on from the Plum Borough School District to help them experience success. When we talk about that, we talk about what are those skills that are in demand. And so again, going through industry standards and looking at different research, we find that these are the skills that are in demand. The ability to be analytical thinking and innovative, to be a complex problem solver, to critically think and analyze, to be an active learner and utilize strategies to continue to learn, and then lastly, to be creative and have an original thought to move something forward. Next slide, please. And with the next piece from that is what are the skills that are needed and how do we break those skills down further? And so what you see here on this screen is a study that was done. And what they did was the researchers of the study looked at job descriptions. And they looked at what are the skills or the nomenclature within those job descriptions that have commonalities. And what you see here are those top 10. When you're thinking about durable skills, they're more referred to as soft skills. So again, not those tactical skills that we're teaching necessarily always in the classroom. But as you heard tonight through Mr. Broad's class and some of those experiences, we are giving students those real world experiences, but how do we continue to expand upon those into all of our courses? Next slide, please. Thinking about those durable skills, and Dr. A and I were talking about this and maybe trying to blow this up further so you can actually zoom in and see this, but here you see those competencies, those soft skills, and then you see those subcategories of different pieces that are tied to that. And again, what are the skills that are needed? What's the mindset that's needed? And what are those dispositions necessary for students to have success in their next journey as they leave the Plum Borough School District? And really it's about taking those two and not necessarily saying that math, science, and social studies aren't important, but how do we find that converging point? How do we marry the rigorous curriculum with intertwining those soft skills in so our students have exposure to both rigor and then continue to build and foster those skill sets so that when they have those ideas and they want to pursue those endeavors, they're prepared to do as such. The next piece on this is really just talking about what is that landscape and realizing that we're preparing students right now for some jobs that don't even actually exist. And so how do we, as an educational system, how are we mindful of that and how are we constantly getting that information around us and getting ready to pivot and change to ensure that we're preparing our students as they matriculate through our K-12 system. Discussing what are those competencies that are important. And again, we're going to see that those soft skills are extremely important. There was a study that was completed by a National Chamber of Commerce that showed that 78% of the people that participated in the study that were hiring managers indicated there's a significant gap in students' skill set when they come out and enter the career force. Almost 50% of that same group indicated that the gap exists because students don't have the skills to take on the positions that are available in the job market today. And so again, how are we positioning ourselves and preparing our students to give them those skill opportunities here at the Plum Borough School Districts when they leave our doors and walk across that field, that whatever their next step is, they're prepared for that opportunity. And the other piece of this is a partnership. And so Portrait of a Graduate is a significantly heavy lift in closing some of these gaps. And so it's a partnership with Battelle Kids, and I'll talk more about Battelle Kids here momentarily, but it's a third-party opportunity to come in and really assist us in this process. It gives us the opportunity to have them be the ambassadors and the listeners and engaging our community and really taking that information as opposed to Dr. Walsh, Ms. Sedlak, or myself sitting there garnering that information because we may not get the most factual input from our students, our teachers, or our community members. And the end in mind really is, again, what is it? And so here you can see some different pictures of different schools of their Portrait of a Graduate. Again, what does that end in mind? What does it mean to be a Plum Borough Mustang, a Plum Borough graduate, and what are those competencies that you need in an effort to graduate and prepare for those next steps? Through this process, we talk about voice and being transparent, really about engaging our community partners and talking about getting their input and what do we need to know, what are those skill sets, what are those deficits, what are you seeing around you, engaging with post-secondary institutions, engaging with the Chamber of Commerce and things of that nature within our local borough, but also regionally as we make this decision to help prepare and understand what students need to know and be able to do. And then lastly, it really just talks about what is that four-step process. Again, the first thing we have to say is how has the world changed and how is the world changing around us? We have to make sure we're prepared to pivot. What are those essential skills and those mindsets? So again, we see what the current research, actually the research from 2020 that was put up there, and again, we understand that continues to evolve. What is that shared vision? So that way we have a common language within the school district, but also in the borough at large, that we are all speaking the same language. We talk about those competencies. And then lastly is, what does that final image look like? So we can depict and show, here's what a Plum Borough School District student is and able to do. In partnering with Battelle Kids, it talks about that design team, and so they'll come in and assist us with engaging in that discussion, identifying those key stakeholders and community members, are also in our internal stakeholders. They'll be providing feedback to us throughout the process because they've worked with other districts in this capacity, and so they know what's working around the globe. And then the other piece is portrait ambassadors, and those are folks that are going to be on those core teams that will be going out and sharing the work and the message of the things that we're doing so they can become a liaison to our core team and solicit additional feedback. And then lastly, you see kind of here is how is that cooperative effort going to take place? And so again, from Battelle Kids, they're going to facilitate conversation and guide that discussion and work with that team, organize the design team, and design the outcome of the Portrait of a Graduate. Through the leadership team, we'll continue to provide leadership and talk about our competencies internally, provide the direction of where we want to go through their feedback, and then lastly, support that collective vision of promoting, once we have our portrait, what it is and what it's all about, and ensuring that we have that common language amongst our community. And so that's kind of a big idea. The one thing that Dr. Anderson hit on and Dr. Walsh hit on earlier really is we have our comprehensive plan coming up. This ties really nicely into the comprehensive plan as it sets the trajectory for the school district. When I think about the portrait of a graduate, this really has an opportunity to think about backwards by design. And so we think about graduate, the end in mind, but what this is going to do is help us design those competencies K through 12 of what a learner should experience as they matriculate through our system. And what I think is the bigger power of this opportunity for us is to really address some of these opportunities and gaps. I see this impacting our program of studies. I see this impacting our sequencing of courses. I see this impacting how AP classes versus college preparatory classes are offered. And so I really think a neat opportunity here exists. Speaking with Dr. Anderson about this, and she shared it earlier, and I don't think she'd mind if I share it now, is, this is something that was near and dear to her heart. And so the ability to really think about where we want to go and provide students with these unique opportunities. PDE has given us some flexibility in our standards and flexibility about how we approach education. And what I see from this emerging is internships, externships, collaborative nature within the borough, getting our students into the business sector so that way they can have those experiences before they go to post-secondary or even into the workforce, so that way they know what they're getting themselves into. And so I really feel this is a neat opportunity for the district, and I'm really excited about the opportunity that lies ahead because I really feel big things will emerge from this. Are there any questions or concerns?
I was going to add, Dr. Boyers, that I think this board has heard me over the last few months talk about Portrait of the Graduate. Over the course of the year, I talked to local districts that have gone down this path. When I was at the National Superintendent's Conference, I had an opportunity to talk to districts across the country and attend some sessions in regard to this particular. And it occurred to me that over the course of the year, I visited all the classrooms, K through 12. And a typical question that I ask when I'm in the classroom is, what are you learning? Why are you learning it? And why is it important? We have outstanding teachers in the Plum Borough School District, but there are opportunities for our kids to have a better understanding of why they're learning it and why it's important and why is there a real-world connection. If I would ask the 9 board members around the table to write down what is your vision of the Plum Borough School District, I bet that it would not be a consistent vision. And as a community, we need to have that vision to know where we're going, to how we allocate resources and money behind what we value as a community. So the more I've have taken a deep dive into this, I really feel it's the right direction for us as a district and as a community to go. And I think Dr. Boyers did a very nice job of giving an overview. But honestly, in some cases, I wonder what has really changed since when I was a student here in Plum High School. The world is changing. And wouldn't it be nice that looking at the experiences our kids have, why aren't they working with our Chamber of Commerce, who has opened their arms to us and have 135 businesses that have said, we would gladly welcome Plum students? And what an opportunity that would be for when they're going into college or into a career, or even having them, career ready with a high school degree. There are many good paying jobs that are out there. And what are those courses that we can offer down the road that would allow them with a high school degree to step into a cybersecurity position, to step into another profession, and to give them those experiences when they're 16, 17, and 18 years old. And what an opportunity that would be for our community. So Dr. Boyers has done the heavy lifting with this. And Ms. Sedlak of pulling this together. And monthly, during our advisory meetings, we beat this up pretty thoroughly, and we feel comfortable that this is the right recommendation moving forward. There is a cost associated with this, in that the money would be used out of last year's budget. As you were aware, Many of us have been wearing 2 hats most of the year, and there's revenue that was in those line items that we would put towards this. I think this board has heard me loud and clear in regards to recommendations that have been moving forward, that we've been using alternative revenue, we've been using grants, and we've been very creative in order to be fiscally responsible and not put a burden on our taxpayers. So I want to thank you, Dr. Boyers, for all the hard work and just the very detailed description.
The hard work is just getting started, just getting to that point. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about it is, and you know, a lot of times you use the word accountability wrong, but I think doing this and having an intentional effort towards it makes us as a district have to be accountable to creating that strategy and really holding ourselves accountable to doing it in the right way. So I think sometimes that's worth it. You guys have, to your point, been wearing 2 hats, been really working hard, and I think this allows it to hold us accountable, but also have another group that has experience with it to walk us through that process. So appreciate that. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Is the cost on here?
It's on the action meeting. It's on the action meeting.
So it's divided into 2, I think.
Yes.
33 and 4. Am I saying
Yeah.
those right? I can't remember.
Correct.
Okay. But coming out of last year's budget, so. Do we have 5 to move it forward? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, thank you.
The next item, Dr. Anderson, is my annual superintendent's conference. The reason I have it on in June is what I learned last year is, and Mr. Strauch, I think I learned a little bit from your brother, talking to him, he's superintendent at Keystone Oaks, is I waited for the actual agenda and everything to come out, and what I found is I could have saved money by booking in advance and having the board approval in advance for flights. I had to stay at a satellite hotel, and as you're aware, you know, we want to engage at the local, state, and national level, and Portrait of a Graduate is just a small example of what was brought back from last year's conference. So,
Do we have 5 to move that forward? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you. Okay. And lastly, the 24-25 OBLOC Elementary School-Wide Title I Plan.
This is an annual plan that needs to be reviewed and approved by the board to access our Title I funds from the federal government.
Anything new or different to it to call out?
No, focusing on early literacy.
Yep.
And math.
Do we have 5 to move that forward? Thank you. Okay, that's all for academic achievement and activities, community engagement. We have no items under that. We'll do your report at the action meeting. Dr. Richardson, Finance, Mr. Strauch, I'm sorry, lead board liaison.
Item A is the May's budget report. I don't know if there's any questions on that or discussion. And then B is just the year-end, typical, you know, the standard year-end, authorizing the chief of financial officer to invest the district funds in accordance with the board policy, to authorize chief financial officer to make necessary year-end budget transfers after June 30th for the 23-24 fiscal year. And the third is to enter into insurance contracts. So if there's no discussion, do we have 5 to move that forward?
Do we have them for A and B? Any questions or concerns on? Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Forbes Road CTC, Miss Arendt, is she still on there? Are you online, Miss Arendt? Okay.
Yeah. The only item we have for the board's agenda is the 24-25 Forbes Road revenue anticipation note that we'd like to move forward. That'd be good to see if we have 5 for that.
Do we have 5?
Let's just pay our bills.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 5, thank you. So next, with items under it is operations, Mr. Adams, lead board liaison.
Right, quite a few items to go through. Try to be efficient.
Food service.
Okay, yeah, I can just, should I turn it over or I can?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's, as you're aware, when we did our handbooks, we included holding the line on lunch prices, but there is a recommendation for the a la carte and the milk and the Nichols bread bids. Ms. Kriegel, if you'd like to just discuss that a little bit to keep the board informed.
Basically, upon review of our budget, we didn't feel the need to increase lunch prices, but due to rising costs, there were some a la carte prices that we needed to increase just to maintain like a 50% food cost. Sometimes the prices do increase throughout the year, so it's just protecting us, and we try to keep the prices low so that the kids, it's not hitting them. And then we also have a recommendation for the Turner Dairy Milk bid and the Nichols Bread bid. They have been our past suppliers, and they have also come in with the lowest pricing. And then do we want to talk about the equipment?
I would say if there's any questions with the first.
Thank you for keeping lunch prices.
We've talked in our cabinet meetings that the a la carte and some of the items in regards to prices, we'd like to incorporate whenever we discuss the handbooks, because that information is within our handbooks. So we're trying to keep this all together because we've already talked about lunch prices earlier. That way we're all on the same timeline and it can be communicated at once. So I'd like to thank Ms. Kriegel, because you'll see some other items that is going to give our cafeteria a fresh start.
Do we have 5 to move letter A forward? Okay. And then letter B. Go ahead, Ms. Kriegel.
So we just need, if you walk into the food court at the high school, you'll see we have a Federal cooler that I tried to salvage it this year, but it definitely needs replaced. So we're gonna have a wraparound refrigeration unit. They're similar to what you see at Sheetz, so they'll have more grab and go options. We'll be able to have more fresh fruits and vegetables for the kids out, and it will be easier for them to grab those options and go. We also have been working on redoing the whole inside of the cafeteria, so you can see the new seating. We just had a meeting today. We're in the finalization projects of the colors and everything else.
And I would like to add that money is being used through federal funding.
Through the cafeteria.
Through the cafeteria fund. So there's not going to be any local revenue used for that. But if you look at our cafeteria seating, it is at end of life. And it is time for a refresh, and this is a cycle that we will look at in regards to all of our buildings.
I think the tables look awesome.
5 for that?
Yes.
All right. Okay, next item is the school physician agreement for Premier Medical. I don't know if Dr. Boyers or
Ms. Sedlock, you would like to just talk about the doctor and the dentist?
Dr. Crosby has been our school physician for quite some time. Our school nurses work very closely with him to update all of our policies and procedures and medication. We would ask that the board move his name forward. We had gone out to an RFP for a school dentist 3 or 4 years ago. The dental services have not been adequate, so we asked to go out to RFP for a school dentist. We would ask that the RFP is someone who had previously served as the school dentist, and we would ask that the board move that name forward.
all right, so I guess we'll do these one at a time if there's no discussion. I'm not hearing any. So school physician agreement at 5.
Yep.
All right, and then school dentist, 5 for that. All right. Good deal. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Dr. Walsh for the locker room upgrade.
So the locker room, this board has heard me talk about privacy and dignity in our restrooms, our locker rooms, and some of those spaces just haven't been updated since, I will tell you that it seems like since I was a student. The days of having communal showers are, I believe, a thing of the past. And what we're recommending is to add dividers and doors that are missing and to really upgrade those spaces here at the high school. And then we're going to take a look at the middle level in elementary, but this is something that we would cycle through. And it isn't any different than what we would expect our students to have in any space in our building, and that's just some privacy and dignity in regards to showering or in locker rooms, the football locker rooms, etc. Schaefer, is there anything you'd like to add to that, or?
No, it's just going to be a work in progress, and we'll have everything started by the start of school. And completed.
All right. Any discussion on that? 5 for that. All right, and that brings us to the Hayes Design Group schematic design phase for O Block Elementary and then Plum Middle School. So there is a cost associated with this, but it also allows us to move forward to the next substantial steps in the renovation efforts. And I think, we've all toured both of these schools and understand some of the necessity of that. So this is going to allow us to kind of keep answering those questions and keep the project moving forward. But go ahead.
I say, Mr. Adams, I would share with this board that, we looked at our finances, we looked at their demographic studies, we worked with Hayes Design Group to move recommendations forward. The recommendation is to stay within that $30 million. And what we heard loud and clear from this board is that the middle school also needs attention. So we've been in conversations with the Hayes Design Group, and early on in our conversations, we realized that there is some significant cost savings, because now that we have the demographic study, we realized we didn't have to build an addition with 8 classrooms. We believe that 6 would be sufficient. It takes off a significant portion of the cost. We also looked at the transition from open house, where we would have parents all show up within a 2-hour window at our buildings, to having a meet the teacher. There's not a need for parking near the cafeteria with the excavation and the additional 50 parking spaces, which was in excess of $1 million. We want to start to get to the design phase, and our goal is, at this point, there's 2 phases. One is to keep the O Block project as close to $25 million as we can, and really take a closer look at our middle school, because what needs to be addressed at the middle school is our ventilation, our plumbing, and some of the envelope of the building, the windows, the doors. And to help offset the costs, Mr. Hartman has already started the process of applying for grants. For instance, at the high school, was that $5 million?
Yeah, 4.3.
4.3 million to offset work that needs to be done on the roof here. We're also looking at potentially up to $5 million to offset some of the construction costs, so we can expand the project at the middle school, and looking at HVAC and perhaps windows and doors because of security and accessibility. So our recommendation is to stay within that 30 million. That is the recommendation that we received from our consultants. Mr. Manzer feels that that is a comfortable number. But I also believe it addresses the 2 concerns that we have, is an expanded population at O Block Elementary, and this board at having conversations, as our kindergarten task force has mentioned, of having that conversation about full-day kindergarten going into the 25-26 school year. We believe that this recommendation will address what we heard from this board in regards to the infrastructure at the middle school and the capacity at O Block. This will give this district the ability and the capacity for students to matriculate K through 12, I believe, for the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years without looking at having capacity issues. I also believe that this board has walked O Block Elementary. And we talk about equity. There is a discrepancy between the students who go to Pivot and the students who go to O Block. There is significant work that needs to be done at O Block Elementary. And we're also aware, as you are, about the infrastructure at the middle school. I believe that the conversation about the middle school is a bigger conversation that this board and future boards needs to have. Personally, I'm concerned with tearing in the walls in a building that was a former Nike site, digging into the ground where there are classrooms that are under the parking lot. And we believe that this option will give us the direction to move forward in the planning and design and continue to keep this project on schedule, because our students are coming, ready or not, compared to that Davis demographics. O Block is nearing capacity, and we believe that this recommendation will address the capacity issues. So.
Yeah, and I guess just to add on timeline, looking at starting this next month, this phase of it, and then hopefully completing in October. That'll pave the way for design development, which would be next. So,
there will be board discussion throughout this process, but all stakeholders are going to have a voice along this process too. So.
All right, any further questions, discussion on that? And
I'm not voting for this or supporting it. I'm sick of we'll keep talking about the middle school, we'll keep talking about the middle school. And I know I'm sort of the oldest serving board member on the board, has been a part of these conversations. And I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but these conversations have consistently been happening about the middle school. And previous boards, whether people liked decisions or didn't like decisions, or we should have built the building bigger, or, I mean, you can look back in hindsight, it's always 20/20 about different things. But the next building to be addressed was the middle school. And until significant conversations are happening about the middle school, I have serious reservations. And I also have reservations about putting $25 million on the center elementary or O Block or whatever we call it, and doing that and not having a conversation. And I know it's a painful conversation, but I think it's owed to the community to be having a conversation of what would redistricting look like. And I don't like the topic. It's a very awful topic to have to bring up, but we owe it to the taxpayers to say we've done all of our due diligence and this is the direction or this is the direction, whichever way the board goes and whichever recommendations come forward with it. But I think we owe it to the taxpayers to have that conversation. But until we start really looking at all of those things and the middle school becomes a real serious conversation, I'm not voting for this. I'm one of 9, I get that, but I'm being very vocal about it because I know the votes that I've made in the past to set a motion for the middle school to be the next building that needs addressed. And that building, whether we need to build a school, whatever the case may be, we need to have a serious conversation about the middle school. And I'm not convinced on $25 million on to center without having the rest of the conversations that I believe are owed to the community. And again, they're not pretty conversations. They're not ideal for anybody, but we at least owe to do our due diligence to see what the cost analysis are and sort of what those numbers really look like. And Davis has all that information, so it's not hard for them to come up with a report for us to at least say we've done our due diligence. I'm done.
I respect.
I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm not there.
Yeah, I respect your opinion, Ms. Stepnick. Just listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, well, what has changed? The closing of Regency and moving to 2 elementaries has forced capacity concerns in our 2 K-4 buildings. And that's what has changed in regards to, I don't know what previous boards did, but we don't have that extra building now that is at the elementary. So I think that is, part of the challenge. Just looking at the current data, listening to our financial experts, to go into do a middle school renovation would far exceed the $30 million that was recommended that is a comfortable spot for this district to move forward. I don't know if Mr. Strauch would have anything to add to that, but by borrowing more would increase the costs, and we need to be transparent of what those costs means. It means tax increases. So I'll respectfully turn it over for Mr. Shopke if you have anything to add in regards to the discussion.
I mean, I agree with you, and I hear Michelle, and I agree with her. I wasn't on this board previously. I don't know what other boards said was next going to be in line. When we received a Hay study on the middle school. I mean, we were in north of $40 million to renovate an old building. She made a comment, Michelle made a comment this evening about maybe it's a new school. And I think, seriously, this board needs to think down the road here. And what I mean by down the road is in the next several years, possibly building a new middle school. That's your comments on there being issues of, digging under the parking lot or knocking out walls in a building of that age is a lot of concern. So I think, that's something we need to start planning now and not.
That completely.
Yeah, we need to start planning that now and not 10 years from now. But I think we do need to move forward because there is a need on the elementary school level. Again, we have 2 elementary schools in the district right now. And if the district is going to be growing with the Davis demographic study, that is the immediate need. And that doesn't mean we're pushing the middle school aside. That just means we're looking at a middle school to renovate and possibly a rebuild down the road.
Yeah, that's also why, there's obviously immediate needs at the middle school, so we should still address those. But it's also why I don't know if we should be just going bonkers on overhauling that school completely if that is something that's a consideration long-term, a new building, so.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't just decide tomorrow you're going to build a new building. Like I said, that's a process. But I think that process needs to start. We need to start having serious discussions about that process. And then back to your point, comfortably, everybody's well aware of what happened last month. Obviously, with an increase in the tax situation, if we start looking at $70-80 million right now today, that impact. I'm not even sure, we're gonna have to go above state indexes on tax increases and so forth. And I don't think we're at that stage today to want to do that as a board and as a district.
I think what I heard from community and from board is about incremental tax increases, like a lot of districts do that. Mm-hmm. It helps taxpayers plan small adjustments, instead of not raising taxes, and then, by the way, 6.2. And I think, unfortunately, the community has really felt it this year in regards to the borough, 38%, the water authority, the school district. And we need to be mindful in regards to moving forward. And I think several times this evening, this board has heard me say alternative funding grants. We're going to get reimbursement from the state in order not to use local tax dollars. And I will tell you that this administration is going to do everything possible to be mindful and be fiscally responsible in moving forward. And taking a deep dive into our staffing like we did this year, and continue to be responsible stewards of the taxpayers' money. So,
and I would just add, I think in walking through both of those buildings, I would echo their HVAC ventilation concerns for the middle school, and I think those are immediate needs that need to be addressed. But I'd also say capacity, and some of our most vulnerable students are in O Block Elementary, and we need to make sure that building is up to par and meets the standards for the education that those students need to receive. So, I think we're good if we're good to move forward. Are there any other comments or concerns, questions? Okay.
I just want to put the timeline in perspective for all of you. My son was in preschool when the middle school was decided was going to be next. He will graduate high school, and some of you whose kids will maybe, or grandkids will be in the middle school will be getting the text saying, could you please make the bathroom stop smelling like, you know. So I'm just cautioning all of you on this decision, and I don't understand why we're not being doing due diligence to our taxpayers and figuring out, is there a way to redistrict? I know it's an ugly topic, but I believe we owe it to the community to at least tell them what the cost is, what the implications are, so we've done every bit of research that we could do. And it saddens me that the rest of you don't want to have that conversation. I know it's not a pretty one, but it saddens me that the rest of you don't. And that's why I'm not voting for this.
Okay, do we have 5 to move it forward? 1. Megan, was that a yes or no? Okay, thank you. Okay. Personnel will cover at the action meeting. Policy, Ms. Arendt, lead board liaison. Are you still on?
Yeah, we have a few items here, adoption and revision of policies 1 through 3. First, we have policy 916, volunteers. This is the second reading. This policy is updated to require clearances from every 3 years to every 5 years. Policy 903, public comment, board meeting, second reading. We have a revision to policy 6 to remove duplicated language. And we have a brand new policy 719, unmanned aircraft systems, unmanned aircraft vehicles and drones. This policy has been developed based on the practices of several school districts across the state, as currently TSBA does not have a recommended drone policy. This policy aims to enhance safety and security measures for our students and staff, as well as prevent any unauthorized recording of extracurricular athletic practices and competitions. So, I think we're all excited to see that this is being added. And with that being said, do we have any discussion on any of these?
I do have a question on policy 719.
I just have one thing. You did, you was there, sorry. And, or Mr. said that, could you explain the reason, again, for the public why we think moving from 3 to 5 years for volunteers is appropriate?
That's what's in the school code and all of the regulations. And it advises.
I just want to remind people that it's not just something we came up with. It's regimented. That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for those revisions. Any further discussion?
Yeah, for the drone policy, once we approve it and move it forward, is that something that's gonna be added to like facilities? If someone wants to run the facility so they're aware, because I'm just thinking about like youth sporting events or whatnot, like.
It will be part of policy. It will be integrated in how we operate. And Dr. Boyers might he's the one that did the heavy lifting on this. Just because the school board hasn't caught up with the technology doesn't mean we don't want to put safeguards in place. We want, in order to fly a drone over our students and our buildings, you need permission. So, Dr. Boyers.
Well, I think you nailed it really. It's just about being mindful of the ever-changing environment around us and the use of technology and how that continues to expand. Through researching this, I learned a lot that I previously didn't know. But really, it's just about knowing who is utilizing our space and what's their purpose. And so that gives Dr. Walsh and or his designee the opportunity to review that and or approve and or deny that. And that even includes within our JROTC, and just making sure that they're given those opportunities, but also we're mindful that that's their drone and their device, so we have checks and balances there.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's like visibility for the public. They're using our spaces, that they know this is our policy and they have to apply to.
I just made a note, when I talk about integration, this is the first reading. We'll go back to our advisory group and we'll talk about all the layers throughout the district in regards to, we talked about JRTC, could be athletic events, could be graduation, but as you mentioned, youth sports or anybody using our facilities, how do we plan on communicating that or deploying that and integrating it and keep learning along the way? Because there may be some blind spots that we're not talking about right now that we'll learn and evolve and get better as time goes on too.
Did you see it? It's in letter B? Okay.
It does say, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
I know, yeah, totally get it. And that form that it's attached, like how will that be if you're renting the facility that you can complete the form and do it? Yep, absolutely.
All right, we have time to move this forward.
Yep. And we're just moving 1 and 2 forward to the action.
Would it make sense in the agenda future to like different subsections for first and second readings to?
Absolutely.
Just a
Can we do that, Ms. Macro? That'd be great, thank you. Okay. And then Student Services, Ms. Stepnick, Lead Board Liaison.
Yes, this is our annual review of the Watson Institute Services Agreement. Did everybody get a chance to read it? If there are any questions?
I don't see any.
I'm in renewal, okay. And that's hard, man, take a look at your little camera, sorry.
That's okay. Do we have?
Five?
Yep.
Board with that?
We do.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Stepnick. Okay, we're gonna just roll into if we have, Mr. Caligari, are you still online?
I am online.
Okay, and Ms. Arendt, you're still there, and Ms. Stepnick, you're still there, correct?
Yes.
All right, we'll just move into the action meeting then, and we'll do our board reports at this time. So, letter or number 1, recommend approval of the following minutes as listed below. On behalf of the board, I will make that recommendation. Are there 5? Or, I'm sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? What'd she say? Okay, any abstaining? Okay. Number 2, academic achievement and activities, myself, Lead Board Liaison. Letter A, recommend approval to accept and resolve the following 1 to 6 as listed below. On behalf of the board, I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Perfect. Okay, I don't have a report for this evening. Number 3, community engagement, inclusion, and outreach. Dr. Richardson, Lead Board Liaison. Do you have a board report?
Yes.
Okay. That's okay.
So our high school was recently accepted into the Special Olympics Interscholastic Unified Sports Track and Field. This program will begin in March 2025. Our high school's unified track and field team will be participating in a minimum of 3 meets as well as culminating county or regional championship events. So that's exciting. Yep. Also, Ms. Sadlack will be attending the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium's 5th Annual Educator Diversity Virtual Summit. The virtual summit will take place on June 25th to 27th, featuring empowering conversations and inspiring speakers aligned with the theme Reversing the Trends, redefining educators of color. She will have the opportunity to connect with over 500 change makers, gain insights, and contribute to inclusivity as part of our active community. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right. For finance, Mr. Stropke, Lead Board Liaison. Recommend approval to accept and resolve the following 1 to 2 as listed.
On behalf of the board, I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, do you have a report this evening?
I have a short highlight, not really a report, but just to reiterate what was said tonight, I want to thank Mr. Hartman and the group. A $5 million grant from the federal government, which, if everyone's well aware, we lost around 1.1 million just coming into this new budget year. to receive $5 million to sort of offset that and offset our costs is a great achievement by the administration for all their hard work, which, in future years, I think talking to Mr. Manzer this week, we've always put, as a board, 4 buses a year on the schedule. So you're talking 6 years worth of, close to maybe 6 years worth of buses that are going to come out of this $5 million, which is, again, as Dr. Walsh said earlier, being fiscally responsible and being able to, be mindful of the taxpayers, that we're not, gouging our taxpayers by no means by looking for these other alternatives other than tax revenue. That's one. The other item is the food service department. Mrs. Griggle doing a fantastic job, who all year long, since I've been coming to meetings and sitting over there to sitting here, all year long is getting $1,000 here, $500 here. It all adds up to where we are now of not being able to be in the position to be able to not raise the lunch prices, except for the areas that we have to. So again, just looking for alternative sources. I think, the board for a few years now, and then this group continues to look for, with administration, to alternatives to offset, so that we're just, we don't like to do 6.3% increases, and sometimes you have to, but if we didn't do these other things, those would be a lot larger, or there would be less programs. So I just want to appreciate Mr. Hartman and all his work again for doing that. And finally, this is we won't reconvene as a board till August again, and hopefully the budget year at the state ends at the end of the month, and they'll begin then finally working on theirs. So we're hoping, and I'm sure Michelle has something to say from that perspective, but we're hoping, we're hearing a lot of good things that could happen, that could be, a windfall for this district and for the taxpayers for future years. And we had to make our budget well ahead of theirs, but hopefully we'll be in a position, maybe as soon as when we come back from August, but that might be pushing it a little bit. But sometime this fall, knowing if we're going to reap the benefits of some of the things that get passed through Harrisburg, that'll again have a great impact on our budget and our fiscal responsibility. So that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Stropke. Forbes Road CTC, Ms. Arendt, Lead Board Liaison. Letter A, recommend approval to accept and resolve Forbes Technical Revenue Anticipation Note.
On behalf of the board, I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Arendt, do you have a report?
No report tonight, thanks.
Okay. Intergovernmental, Mr. Stropke and Mr. Caligiuri, co-lead board liaisons. Anything to report?
No report at this time.
Mr. Caligiuri? Okay. Legislative, Mrs. Stepnick, lead board liaison. Anything to report this evening?
Just really briefly, I don't have to partake in the conversations too much because our delegation is fantastic. And our state senator, voted against the vouchers. But as I reported when I was in Harrisburg, the cyber charter reform, it's not going to have an issue passing the House of Representatives. It's being held up in the Senate, and their bargaining chip that they're trying to use to get it through is partially with using school vouchers. So there is a battle going on in the Senate with the vouchers. So to your point, Mark, you hope maybe by August when we get back together, we will have a budget that actually is completed. I would hope so, but their deadline is June 30th, and right now that's what's funding a big windfall for us in many districts is with that cyber charter reform, amongst other things. But that is a piece of how they're going to fairly fund public education in the state of Pennsylvania. So all eyes are now on the Senate and how that's going to work and what the ultimate education bill will look like. It is not yet done, but I am following it, but, you know, I can report today that this is where we are, and tomorrow it can be very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stepnick. Operations, Mr. Adams, Lead Board Liaison. Letter A, recommend approval to accept and resolve the following 1 to 6 as listed.
On behalf of the board, I'll make that recommendation.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining,
To which number?
A4.
Good, Ms. Macro? Okay. Mr. Adams, do you have a report?
Quick report. District safety team members recently joined forces with local first responders on the 6th of June to engage in a tabletop. The goal of this exercise was to evaluate and enhance our EOP and team response in the event of a crisis. We're appreciative of the invaluable time and feedback provided by our dedicated first responders whose partnership with the school district continues to strengthen. A special thanks also goes out to Mr. Aaron Skirbin, the AIU Director of Safety and Security, for his efforts in designing and leading the tabletop exercise. With these collaborative efforts, we are ensuring the safety and security of our students, staff, and community members, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Next up, Personnel, Mr. Caligiuri, Lead Board Liaison. Letter A, recommend approval to accept and resolve the following 1 to 16 as listed.
I will make that recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Caligiuri, do you have a report this evening?
I guess not really a report, but I wanted to recognize Mr. Preston's team for their grant application. That is no small feat and quite an accomplishment. I also want to recommend the coaches coming in. They're very important to our students, so I want to congratulate them and wish them the best. And as a coach, I'm going to tell them, just be a coach, and sometimes the parents can be tougher than the kids. So I wish them the best. But other than that, there's no report.
Thank you, Mr. Caligiuri. Next up, Policy, Ms. Arendt, Lead Board. Oh,
Man,
yeah.
I see Mr. Cole smiling because we have Mrs. Rebecca Munda, who is our new Transportation Administrative Assistant, who has sat through this entire board meeting. So I just wanted to welcome her aboard officially as a Mustang. Look at that smile on his face. That says it all right there. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Welcome, Rebecca. Okay, next up, Policy, Ms. Arendt, Lead Board Liaison. Letter A, recommend approval to adopt and revise the policies 1 to 2 as listed below.
On behalf of the board, I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Ms. Arendt, do you have a report?
No report. I just want to thank Ms. Sedlak and Dr. Boyer for all the thoughtful work that goes into developing these policies. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, Student Services, Mrs. Stepnick, Lead Board Liaison. Letter A, recommend approval to accept and resolve the annual renewal of the Watson Institute Services Agreement for the 24-25 school year.
On behalf of the board, I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Ms. Stepnick, do you have a report for this evening?
I do. First, again, I'd like to congratulate all of our hardworking staff on a great school year. The graduation was amazing to watch, and so that, again, thank you to all of you, and to all of our retirees, and to Mr. Hartman and Mr. Manzer for their hard work on our school bus grant. I feel like that was the hard work, not really the work have some great news. The Pennsylvania Department of Education has accepted our approval for our comprehensive special education program for the next 3 years. Our special ed department is dedicated and committed to working closely with our parents and guardians to solicit feedback and design opportunities for communication and collaboration. I think that's some of what we've been talking about, is trying to have, to some level, quarterly meetings or a couple of meetings a year to continuously touch base. So that work is continuous, right, up until the next 3 years, and that'll help us with our feedback as well. By keeping everyone informed and involved, we're going to be able to provide the best possible support and resources for our students and families. And for any of our students and families that need some support during the summer, Ms. Konarski, one of our social workers, is available to support them through the summer months. And you can certainly contact the school contact the child's school, for assistance if it's needed. And I think that's important to know that our supports are in place while our kids are home.
Thank you, Ms. Stepnick. All right, that concludes our meeting for this evening. Upcoming public meetings, discussion and action meeting, Tuesday, August 13th, 2024, 7 o'clock in the high school. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstain? Thank you.
Anybody abstain?
Thank you, sir. Hopefully you can get some time, downtime, if that's even possible.
Downtime? We can't afford the downtime.
Thank you.
Nice shirt.
Thank you. I want to make sure that